Well, hello, you guys. I think I've got a quite an interesting topic today, and I want to talk about strengthening the host. So I don't know how you feel about of what's going on around you right now, but I feel like it's just a matter of time before we will. Oh, the virus is gonna get us, and whether you're vaccinated or not, it looks like is getting milder, but much more contagious. And vaccinated, unvaccinated people are getting it, and so I really think it's just a matter of time. And so I think the one part of the conversation that's really missing from the PSA, public service announcement, public health announcement, both in Europe and the United States, is a conversation about what can we do to strengthen the host. And so one thing I want to ask you, which basically means you, what can you do to strengthen your own immune system so that when you get it, if you get it, you are well prepared to take care of yourself. And so today I'm going to go over a list of things that I think I'm going to help you a lot with having them ready, having them on hand. And I encourage you to stock up on some of the things that resonate with you, because once you're sick, it's no fun going shopping for things. And sometimes a lot of things are also out of stock. And so placing them sooner than later is always better. I have a couple of requests. One is that, can we please not discuss vaccines on this call? It's a very divisive conversation. You're not going to convince anyone of your whether it's right or wrong to have it, to get it or not. At Hormones Balance, we encourage unity and coming together as women to help each other and not to divide each other. And as you know, I think the one thing that we can all agree on is that at the end of the day, no one is gonna get hurt by having a strong, robust, and adaptable immune system. So I hope we can agree on that. And that's really what I want to make this call about today. People who are going to be posting about vaccines and starting these conversations, we're going to delete those comments. And people who are going to persistently do that, we have no choice but basically delete you from this conversation. So that's my request. And as I'm going through things, I'll also love to hear from you what's working for you, what has worked for you. If you've contracted the virus, or if you have, or if you're just ready for it, what are you doing to help yourself? So let me just start off with laying the foundation for the immune system, because a lot of times, I have a whole bunch of herbs and supplements here on my desk, and I'm going to be going through all of them to give you options and tell you what is the right thing to do when. But before that, I want to kind of build up the foundation on what is really important when it comes to strengthening your immune system. And, we always think about, like, what's the one herb, what's the one supplement? And the really key issue is to, first and foremost, lower the inflammation in your body as much as you can, because once you lower the inflammation, then the immune system is a lot more able and adaptable to fight off any kind of infection. And so one of the best things that you can do, and I'm wondering, as you guys are listening to this, I'm wondering, what is your favorite way of lowering inflammation? I have found that by doing the elimination diet and reducing foods, eliminating foods that we know are highly inflammatory, can have a profound impact on how your immune system is going to function. And I will give you a short example here, a quick example of that. Many years ago, when I used to work in advertising, we were locked up by one of our clients in a hotel in the middle of nowhere in China. And for those of you who don't know me, I used to live in, I grew up in Asia. I spent 22 years of my life in Asia, and so the most formative years. And I used to work in advertising, and they will lock us up in a hotel. And because a lot of us were foreigners, they thought that serving Western food, which was basically in any form of gluten, it was all very gluten-based, very dairy-based, very fatty food. There was no Chinese food options whatsoever, which I would have much rather preferred. They locked us up like that for 3 or 4 days in order to work on some strategic plans for the following year for this brand. And I remember, and basically, so, what the way it looks, it's like you start off breakfast with with bread, and then for lunch you have sandwiches, and for dinner you have pasta, right? And so I already knew that I could not tolerate gluten. And it was really fascinating to see how, when after 3 days of being there, my immune system just shut down and I got sick. And I'm pretty sure, and I hardly ever get sick. So there was a really, I didn't know what I know today, but that was a very telling moment in my life, realizing, wow, food can actually really make me sick, to a point where my immune system is really compromised. So that's one big thing that you can really do, even starting off. And if you don't have my books, both of my books, Cooking for Hormone Balance, as well as Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, which is the latest book, will help not only lower the inflammation, but also, in the event of doing so, is going to help you also balance your hormones. Because, as you know, for those of you who've done who've read the book or have done our programs before, lowering your inflammation is gonna just, a lot of chronic conditions are gonna go away. You're gonna sleep a lot better. You're gonna lose weight, right? As well as, and your hormones are gonna be able to be produced and metabolized a lot more efficiently as well. So I want to really encourage you to look at that, and don't delay this. It's one of the hardest changes to make, doing the elimination diet and giving up some of those foods. But starting off, really, the biggest one I would say is gonna be gluten and dairy. Those are the two, I would say, non-negotiable in your list of foods. And if you have not given them up yet, I highly encourage you. This is the right time right now. If you want to strengthen the host, strengthen your immune system, this is the way to go right now. The third food that you might want to seriously consider eliminating or reducing as much as you can at this point is sugar. And this is, I think, one of my disappointments about, like, just generally about, we talk so much about there's very singular track of discussing the health of the population right now. And you know very well what that is. I don't need to tell you. You turn on TV, there's only one narrative, right? Get the vaccine and nothing else. And I'm not going to comment on that. My whole purpose is to give you an alternative and a parallel track to go by, because whether you get the vaccine or not is paramount that your host, which is your body, is strengthened and is adaptable to whatever infections coming your way. So, the disappointment for me is the fact that, why are we not talking about reduced sugar? We're talking about calories on menus, but why are we not talking about sugar reduction in the general population? Why are we not talking about reducing obesity? Why are we not talking about vitamin D3 levels? And I'll address D3 in just a second, because it's one of those. There's been a study that was done how COVID, people who had even in functional medicine will be considered low values. They were looking at 30 nanogram a milliliter, which is, in functional medicine, we want to see it between 60 and 80. So people with low vitamin D3, for example, suffered symptoms of the virus a lot more than people who had higher D3 levels. So this is just one example. So going back to sugar, sugar is a huge immune suppressant. And in a category of sugar is also alcohol. So many of you here are very familiar that if you're on our mailing list and you follow us for a while, we're doing Dry January with my team. And so all of us are in love with Gaia, which is like this amazing aperitif. And many of us are sipping on that instead of doing any form of alcohol, because ethanol, which is alcohol, converts to sugar in your body, is a huge immune suppressant as well. At the same time, alcohol consumption during time of COVID has actually almost doubled, according to the sales reports on alcohol. So something to consider too. So let's just recap that. Setting up your foundation, doing the elimination diet, take out gluten completely, dairy, sugar. Somebody's asking, is it refined sugar? Yes. However, somebody might be, for example, eating copious amounts of honey and fruit, and all of that can add up to, 50, 60 grams of sugar. You want to cap your sugar consumption no more than 20 grams a day, which is 5 teaspoons. And so it's something that you need to figure out. In America, there's unfortunately a lot of sugar in different foods. And so it's if you have my books, just follow, one of the things to do is follow the PFF kind of breakfast, protein, fat, and fiber kind of a breakfast. And that's going to set you up for a real low sugar consumption throughout the day. Is honey okay? It is, but it depends on how much, right? So remember, honey is still sugar at the end of the day. Having a teaspoon here or there is no big deal, right? But if somebody is making some baked goods and eating a whole cake that has got a cup of sugar, a cup of honey, then there's a lot of sugar right there. I'm going to move on because there's a lot of other things I want to talk about. Just remember, looking at your sugar consumption up to 20 grams, 5 teaspoons a day, you should be able to gauge that. If you're not sure how much sugar there is in food, just Google it. There is great resources on that. Many of you like to start off a day, for example, with a smoothie, right? And a smoothie, and a lot of you will put a banana in it. I mean, banana itself will, depending on the size of the banana, but most likely is going to be already taking up the 20 grams of sugar in your day already, right? So that's a very high sugar content containing fruit, and so I don't recommend it in general. And so learn how to do savory breakfast. That's going to set you up for success, and sugar reduction throughout the day. Your immune system is going to love it. The other part of the foundation is sleep. Okay, so let's not forget about sleep. Anybody here who sleeps very poorly will know that your immune system is going to take a hit. One thing that I forgot to put it on today, but I often wear an Aura ring. It's a ring that tells me the quality of my sleep. And I can tell you that whenever my sleep is poor for a few days, this is the time when I start feeling like I'm going to come down with something. My immune system is feeling very, very compromised. So if you're dealing with sleeping problems, that's not a call in itself. Kamalani is going to post a link to an article that I wrote. It took me about 9 months to write it. It is called how to fix sleep after 45. Okay, and I know many of you here are facing issues with sleep because it is one of the challenges when we get a little bit older. Sleep becomes an issue, whether it's because of high inflammation, whether it's because of estrogen dropping, progesterone dropping, so hormonal imbalances. But I think generally we just get a little more sensitive to a lot of different things. And so the article is posted there. For those of you who are on Instagram, I would suggest just go to hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com, and look for the sleep article called How to Fix Your Sleep After 45. So this is really, I would say, this is a big foundation for you moving forward. Now, there is a few nutrients that we know about that it's very easy to fix that will be paramount for you to feel a lot better. So the first thing I'll mention is zinc. Okay, unless you're eating a lot of oysters every day, and oysters unfortunately are right now are out of season. Most people do not get sufficient amounts of zinc. How do you know you're low on zinc? Well, I just came back from a trip where I wasn't very good with my supplements. And so I don't know if you can see this, and I'm not showing you my finger, I'm just showing you my nail. There's a white spot on my finger. Okay. And that's an indication that I'm most likely low on on zinc. You don't want to do more than 30 milligrams a day of zinc. Zinc is paramount in your immune system, engaging and strengthening the host that is you. It's also going to be super important in progesterone production, as well as your gut lining depends on the amount of zinc that you have. So as you can see, it's not just the immune system that will benefit from these protocols, but it's also your hormones will benefit as well. So second thing is, let's talk about vitamin D3. So I kind of mentioned that before. There were studies right before, when COVID started happening, when they studied people with sufficient, I think it was a 700 people study, which is pretty big. And they looked at vitamin D3 levels, and they've realized that anybody who is really low on the vitamin D3 side of things suffers a lot more as compared to people who have sufficient numbers. Now, what does the sufficient mean? If you look at your lab work, you got it from lab work, or you got it from, from Quest or whoever, right? That the traditional lab ranges will tell you that anything between 10 and 30 is okay. Functional medicine says no, that's absolutely not enough. And especially if you're dealing with an autoimmune disease, you should be between 60 and 80. That's a sweet spot of nanograms a milliliter. If you're in Canada, it's a different matrix. You just look at the conversion. So really super simple thing to fix. Vitamin D3 is not easily obtainable in foods. And so one of the things you can do is just get a supplement. And we have a special for you where we package things together in our Immune Boost kit. I'll share this with you in a second. You can save $5 on the whole kit. And vitamin D3 and zinc is part of that. Moving on, vitamin C is obviously a big one. Vitamin C is pretty useless when you're already sick, but vitamin C taking it at a time as a preparation, as you are strengthening the host, is a really great idea. I am beginning to lean a little bit more towards natural forms of vitamin C, so like originating from things like amla or Indian gooseberry or acerola or camu camu. If you can't get those, you can also take in the form of ascorbic acid. We have a one in our store which is called Vitamin C Burst, and it's a combination of ascorbic acid and amla. So sorry, acerola. So it's a combo of those two and a few flavonoids combined with that. This really is your foundation. Like once you get this right, lower your inflammation, reduce sugar, get sufficient sleep, work on your sleep during this time, right? Correct your vitamin D and continue taking vitamin D3. If you're living on Northern Hemisphere, right now, sun is not enough. Even like right now, it's sunny here in Colorado. If I step outside and be outside for 20 minutes or so, I will not get, because of the angle that the sun is shining on my skin, I will not get any vitamin D3 for that. So supplementing if you're on the North Hemisphere during this time in winter is paramount. Test your vitamin D3 levels. It's super simple. Even the most conservative MDs would test it for you. And so you'll make sure it's D3. And remember, you want to be between the 60 and 80. That's your sweet spot. Okay. So once you get that covered, you're already in much better place than most people. Then I will say majority of the population, especially in the United States, when there's so many deficiencies and people eating a lot of crap out there. Okay. So, hey, you guys, there's a lot of questions about cane sugar, molasses, et cetera, et cetera. Please remember, all of that is sugar at the end of the day. And so, like I said, 20 grams of sugar, 5 teaspoons is your target amount, or anything less than that, right? So you do the math. At the end of the day, those are all sugars. It doesn't really matter whether they're high in fructose, they're high in sucrose. They will suppress your immune system. They work the same way on the immune system. Okay, so let's move on to a few herbs that I want to call out that can be super helpful, and also precaution you just a little bit on a couple of things. Because, for example, one of the things that a lot of people think, it's like, oh well, if I'm getting sick, if you ask a layman on the street, like, what's the one herb you can take when you're beginning to feel sick? People will say echinacea, right? And it's like, yeah, that's true. That can be super helpful. Well, guess what? Echinacea is not for everyone. And so always remember, now that we are shifting into herbs, remember that not all herbs are going to work the same way for everyone. Same with food. One person's food is another person's poison, right? And so with herbs, it's the same thing. And we need to be very respectful of that. So echinacea is one herb that, for example, for me, it makes me sicker. If I'm beginning to feel sick and I take echinacea is going to make me sick. Why is that so? Well, interestingly, people who have a history of Hashimoto's, and I have a Hashimoto's, there is most of the time in remission. Sometimes it flares up. The echinacea activates what's called the Th1 part of the immune system. And people with autoimmune diseases such as Hashimoto's tend to have elevated Th1. So by taking echinacea, I'm bumping up and overactivating Th1 even more so. And that's what is suspected, the reason why some people just can't do echinacea. So one of the things that I do, and it's really important especially if you're shopping for an herbal formula that's got a lot of different herbs in there, make sure that if echinacea is present in it, best is to shop for one that does not contain any echinacea. The second thing is, if you shop for something that has echinacea as one of the later ingredients on the list, like it's the 4th or 5th herb in there, and that way the amounts are going to be small. It most likely is not going to affect you. It does not affect me, but you're going to try it out. And it's best to do it, when you are slightly sick and not suspecting to have COVID, because this is not the time to experiment. For those of you who are joining late, my suggestion is to have all the supplements ready, and not wait till the last minute, because when you start feeling you're coming down with something, that's when you really want to address it. And somebody's saying here that echinacea also makes her sick. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So let me just go back quickly I'm going to do a quick share. If you go to our store, there is we have the immune kit. It's right there, and we have a $5 off on the whole immune support kit, which is basically a vitamin C, vitamin E, your zinc and D3. What is it? Zinc. What am I missing? Vitamin E. Okay, I can't see it. D3, E, zinc, and vitamin C. Yeah, so those four, and we're giving you $5 off. You just use a coupon code called Immune5 exclamation mark. Okay, and it can be capital. It should be in capital, I think. Immune5 exclamation mark, and that way you can save $5 in that. You're also getting additional discount because it is a kit on top of that. So the $5 is additional, and this is valid until January 25th. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit towards. I want to share with you, and by the way, I'm gonna go through quite a lot of herbs today, and a lot of it can get quite overwhelming. And so my suggestion would be to check out the article that we have for you, because we've written. Actually, the whole thing started when quite a number of our team members started getting sick, and the protocol actually came from my good friend Lisa Ganara, who is a master herbalist, biochemist, and she was also the director of Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism, and so she put this protocol together. She was one of the first people I know who got sick with COVID last year, and so it hit her really hard. And she put a beautiful protocol together. So we have all of that in the article on our website on hormonesbalance.com. So don't worry if you're not capturing everything. There's a lot of things that you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed to hear, especially as I shift gears towards the herbs side of the things. So I talked about echinacea. Yes, it can be helpful, but it's also not the best time to take it if you are, if you are not doing well with it. So let's mention a few things here. The herbs that are just really quite amazing. So one of my favorites is andrographis. It's right here. It's from Herb Farm, andrographis. Andrographis actually in Thailand is used as official herb that is used for managing COVID. And so you can get it from Herb Farm. They do sell out quite a lot. So that's why I'm saying stock up now, so that in case they are out of inventory, then you get it and you have it on hand. So you can see like mine is still sealed. It's not even open yet because I have it just in case I will need it. Another one that I want to share with you, which is one of my favorites, actually, there's a really great company here that's based in Colorado called Wish Garden Herbs. This is their product. Let me just also go to make sure. Yeah. This is one of their formulations. It's called V Fighter. So you know what V stands for. It's a viral fighter, right? And really, really great combo. Very little echinacea in this. So it's got things like boneset, lomatium, bee propolis, elderflower, myrrh, yarrow, grindelia, thyme. I know for many of you, it might not really mean very much to you, but as an herbalist, I just want to share with you, it's an amazing formula. Many of the people, what's the brand? It's called Wish Garden Herbs. And I think that's the website, wishgardenherbs.com. They do ship within the United States. I can get them at our health food stores here in Colorado, but I don't think they have that nationwide. This is one amazing product that I highly recommend. Another thing that you want to have on hand, which can be super helpful, is your elderberry. There's been a lot of really silly fear of elderberry suppressing the immune system and working the opposite. That has been debunked. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I want to move forward with the different herbs, but it's a wonderful thing that you can do even as a preventative. It tastes amazing. Just make sure when you're getting an elderberry syrup, it's got minimal sugar in it. A lot of the commercial ones would have an elderberry extract only, and everything else is very sugar based. And so you want to get it from a good brand that's freshly made and has got like when you look at the ingredients, the first one, for example, this one here that I'm holding, it says raw honey, elderberries, organic apple cider vinegar, propolis tincture. It does have echinacea in here, but it's the last ingredient, so I don't mind that at all, and that works really well for me. A good health food store would always have that on hand. Another one that when I mentioned, do a shout out for Wish Garden is for those of you who are struggling with lungs. So there is one of the things that you want to pay attention to is that, and many people who are affected by that during COVID, is that there is two types of coughs that you have. One is what we call expectorant, is like when it's like super deep and rich, like you cough and people look at you because like it just sounds as if you're having a volcano explosion in your lungs, right? So it's like a very wet, rich kind of cough. And so there's different kind of herbs you want to take for that kind of expectorant kind of a cough, as compared to a cough that is a dry cough, that nothing is coming out. It's called unproductive or non-productive cough. So you just go, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just coughing and coughing and coughing and you can't stop. That is a different type of herbs for that. So take a look at the article. It's really important to differentiate between those two, because if you're doing, for example, let me give you an example. When you have an expectorant, so that wet kind of cough, and you do something like a wild cherry bark syrup. Many of you might have heard of that. That's another brand I really like. I'll give you that name in a second. Is that what happens is you will trap the cough deep inside the lungs, and you're not gonna be able to clear it quickly. The purpose of some of the herbs that we have stated for the kind of wet cough is to get the cough out and moving, and then it's going to move to a dry kind of a cough, and then you can move to, for example, wild cherry bark syrup. So it's really important to differentiate between those two. Not all cough syrups are the same. You're just prolonging potentially the disease. So what happens is like you have a dry cough and you're just coughing and coughing and coughing. Planetary Herbals, and they do ship nationwide. You can get them online. I think Vadakos sells them too. It's an amazing, really well done syrup. Again, it's not like a sugar syrup with a few drops of some chemical added to it, but it's actually the real deal. Another one for really great for throat, and especially at the early stages when you're beginning to start feeling a little coughy, there's something and is scratchy in your throat, and it's not a good sign, right? One of my favorite products that actually I carry that in my purse. This is my little purse that has got like my lipsticks and perfumes and supplements to save me, is from Beekeepers. And so this is also one of the products that we love at Hormones Balance, Beekeepers Throat Spray. And we have some kind of a promotion going on with them. I don't remember what it is. You just go on the website and you can claim the discount from them. They have and it's not just, so it's propolis based. For those of you who don't know, propolis is pretty amazing. It's what the bees live on. That's what the mother bee the queen is getting, and it's incredibly nutritionally rich, but it also helps your immune system. It's completely different from honey. Propolis is it's a category on its own that's pretty outstanding. Let's see. Another one maybe I want to share with you today is, this is one herb that I feel very drawn towards. And I want to just mention that as well, is that sometimes you might feel a certain pull. If you're allergic to pollen, propolis does not, hold on. Let me just, you have to look at the ingredients and take it from there. The ingredients are so tiny. I can't read it right now. You need to check whether there is pollen in here. Many of the products do have pollen in it. So if you're allergic to that, you need to look at the ingredients very carefully. One thing that you might want to do is start exercising a muscle of learning what herbs your body kind of really resonate towards, is really pull towards, and which herbs do you rather stay away from. It's a very beneficial skill, same as in with life and with food. And of course, if it's a cookie that's calling you every time, I'm not talking about that kind of intuition, okay? I'm talking about like an intuition towards a specific herb or healthy food, or maybe you have an aversion to something. That's also something to respect. Your body a lot of times will tell you what it needs and what it doesn't. It's great to have that kind of intuition. And certainly as an herbalist, I have developed that muscle. I'm far from being great at it, but I'm learning. I'm getting better and better at it now. One of my favorites is schisandra. Schisandra is a berry from Russia, from up in the it's a Siberian berry. The fascinating thing about these berries is that a lot of time when they grow in a harsh environment like Siberia, where it's cold and it's windy, and there is a level of persistence and resilience that the herb needs to develop, the plant needs to develop. A lot of the time, these plants pass on these qualities to us as humans. And so schisandra, in a very sad way, has been tested in gulags. For those of you who don't know, gulags were basically concentration camps for a lot of intellectuals during times of communism. And so people were forced to work there and in horrible conditions. And they were doing studies on people who were given schisandra versus those who were not given schisandra. And they found that not only that those who were taking schisandra were working a lot harder or were able to work harder, longer, but also they were getting a lot less sick. And so very unfortunate way of finding this out, but I am certainly very drawn towards this berry. On top of that, it tastes absolutely amazing. In Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine is called the 5-flavor berry. So it's got that salty and sweet and astringent and acidic sort of quality to it. And so it's pretty amazing. I really like Nature's Answers is the brand that I like to buy, because they add a little bit of glycerin to it as well. And so it just makes it an absolutely amazingly tasty herb tincture. Now, do you only need to take it when you get sick? Absolutely not. Schisandra is not only amazing at boosting your host, strengthening your host, supporting your immune system, but it's also, you can see how dark it is because the berries are pretty dark, but it's also amazing at supporting your liver. So for those of you who tried our digestive bitters, schisandra is one of the herbs that we use in them because of the liver support. And I have that. Oh, so good. It's gonna make me salivate a little bit because it's like taking a little bit of lemon slice, right? Is beginning to like build up a lot of it's really promoting saliva production in my mouth. Yeah, amazing. So yeah, can you take these herbs every day or just seasonal? So that's a good question. And we addressed, so let me address that. Things like, for example, schisandra, you can definitely take that on a daily basis. Things like keeping your immune system really, so being on anti-inflammatory diet, reducing sugar, avoiding alcohol, getting quality sleep, that's something that you should be doing every day, period. For those herbs that I'm talking about here, we do recommend it to things like elderberry, andrographis, schisandra, to be taking that on a regular basis during times of flu, like right now, what we're experiencing, and start adding things like, you don't need to do the wild cherry bark, for example, for your cough, unless you are coughing, right? So there's no benefit of taking this unless you are actually coughing. So there's definitely a differentiation there. Let me just go back to the article and see what else do I want to talk about from there. Oh yeah, so one other thing I want to mention, which is really quite fascinating, is inducing fever as a way of supporting your immune system. So let's just say that you are beginning to feel like you might be coming down with something, okay? We all have those moments, right? And so one of the best way of overcoming and addressing that is to actually induce fever. So hang in there for a second, because I know for a lot of people, it might sound really, really strange. You see, developing a fever in our body, right, is actually the body's way of responding to an infection. And the body raises our body temperature in order to fight off the virus. So the virus, that's why if you think about it, like in summer, we have less viral infections because it's hot and the virus does not survive. So this is the reason why developing fever is actually a good thing. And when you're lowering the fever by using all sorts of different, whether you're using Tylenol or whatever other painkillers and body temperature reducing medications, you're actually prolonging your suffering, you're prolonging the disease, and you're letting the virus actually spread out and do even more damage. So one of the things, of course, this is just a little caveat here. If somebody's running horrendously high fever, then that's a hospital material. You don't do that when you're already running a super high, dangerously high fever, okay? I'm talking about the moment when you're just beginning to come down with something, you're beginning to feel cold, right? You're beginning to get a little bit of shivers. You know that feeling. I don't need to explain that to you. So what happens is you can do a couple of things to induce your own fever. And I've done this a number of times, including just recently. I came back from Poland. My father was very sick. I was there for 5 weeks, supporting my family, my sister, my dad through the whole process, getting him ready for chemo. It was a stressful time. And then when I got back to the United States, then from the moment I landed, there was a crazy 4-hour period where there was just one literal shit show after another. And by the time I got home, I was so incredibly depleted that the following day, not surprisingly, actually 3 days later, I started feeling really, really sick. So what do? I induce fever. And in order to basically stop the sickness in its tracks. And there's a couple of things you can do. The first thing is you put on a lot of clothes on yourself. Second thing is drink herbs that are heat producing. So the two best ones is gonna be a ginger infusion. And you might make not just like a ginger tea bag from a tea bag that was there in your drawer for the past 2 years, but you actually want to take a fresh ginger root. If you don't use it often in your kitchen, then put it in the freezer, defrost it, and quickly put it in the hot water. You infuse it really quickly. Make a strong infusion. And that is going to help you start sweating with those clothes on. You can also add on an herb called yarrow, Yarrow. Yarrow, when drunk hot, is an expectorant, and so it makes you sweat a ton. So having these clothes on, you can drink that tea. You can also go on and take a hot bath. If you have a hot tub, jump in a hot bath while drinking that tea. If you have a sauna, or even better still, infrared sauna, get in a sauna and again, infuse that fever by drinking that hot tea. And you will see that your response to that is not pleasant as you're going through this, because you're basically inducing fever and it's not a pleasant experience. But you might feel like, instead of being the disease developing any further, is actually going to stop it in its tracks, and you might actually wake up and feel a lot better. So it's, I think, a very underestimated and very underused technique of inducing fever as a way of dealing with any kind of infection, whether it's bacterial infection or whether it's a viral infection. Of course, if it's like if you have a wound infection, or if there's a serious infection you have in the body, that might not be applicable to what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more like in the context of flus and colds. So who here has ever tried inducing fever and actually breaking fever? You might have heard the term, my fever broke, right? And you feel it. Like when that happens, you actually feel the fever breaking, and you come out. It almost feels like you come out on the other side of the tunnel. I've had a number of times, and it feels pretty amazing. I mean, like, man, this stuff really works. This is so great. Okay, so let's see what else do we have in the article. For those of you who are joining us late, we have all of those recommendations for you in the article. It's just been posted on hormonesbalance.com. Look at the articles, it's right there. There's a few other things that we mentioned there. So let me just also talk about licorice, because that's another interesting tincture and herb that is not for everyone, and some people are very scared of it. Licorice is actually an amazing herb that is not just for adrenals, but it also helps you rebuild your immune system. It helps you with just like is a cortisol rebuilder. It helps you to recirculate cortisol in the body. It helps healing your gut. And so there's so many incredible applications of licorice. The fear in general is that a lot of people think that if they start taking licorice, they will get high blood pressure. And that's not correct. Licorice is contraindicated for people who already have high blood pressure. So that's the one herb you don't want to take, because yes, it will elevate your blood pressure. However, if you have healthy blood pressure, licorice is not going to do anything. It's not an herb that you want to take in the long term. If you're taking it because you're sick, you want to do it for no longer than 2 months. So 4 weeks, 8 weeks is the recommended time after that you want to back off. If you're doing it once in a while in a tea, that is fine. But if you're doing it therapeutical doses, meaning like 30 drops of licorice, then you shouldn't be doing it. So Teresa is asking, what about DGL licorice? So deglycorized licorice. So that's a good question. And the answer is that's a kind of licorice that will not induce high blood pressure. I was talking more from the context of tinctures, and in tinctures, you will always have the full herb, where there is decolorization happening, where in supplements, some supplements. So if you see DGL licorice, it basically means that, and you have high blood pressure, then it's a safe form of licorice to take. One other thing I want to mention is so we have that mentioned on our website is eucalyptus. And so I just want to forewarn you, because I had a horrible experience just recently with my dogs. I started, when I mentioned to you how I was beginning to get sick, and I could really feel it in my lungs. That's where immediately whatever that was went straight into my lungs. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to diffuse some eucalyptus in a diffuser, essential oil, right? And then a few hours later, I see my dogs puking. And it took me a few minutes to kind of figure out. I was like, hold on a second. They shouldn't be puking, especially one of them. She never pukes. What's going on here? And that's when I Googled eucalyptus essential oil, and fair enough, it's highly toxic to dogs. So there is a bunch of essential oils that are safe and not safe. Cats are different from dogs. So please, if you are diffusing essential oils, do check the safety list if you have a pet. Let's see. I think that's a pretty much all I have for today. And there's a few other things I kind of missed about, like carotenoid rich diet. So having a diet that is basically super high in green leafy vegetables. So bring on the collard greens, bring on the kale, bring on the charts, right? Those are some of the things that are just incredible at addressing those. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope this is helpful for you guys. What are your thoughts on NAC? Yeah, NAC is great. Unfortunately, it's a product that it's an ingredient or amino acid that we have to remove from our store. So I think we still have a sale going on of our detox support because it contains NAC. Unfortunately, platforms like Amazon and Shopify, where we are at, would not allow us to sell NAC. So we had to do a clearance sale to move that product off the store. But NAC is a wonderful detoxifier. I wouldn't say it's it's something that you can take on a regular basis, especially if you're detoxing. And so that's a great one. I wouldn't say there is a direct connection between NAC and strengthening the host as such. But it's a great long-term supplement to just detox you. And the more you are detoxed, the better functioning your immune system is, right? Thoughts on quercetin? Yeah, quercetin is great. And Teresa is asking, so that's a good question. The saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, that's actually came from quercetin. So that's the one that is wonderful. We have one in our store, quercetin with nettles. And so we're going to be talking a lot about it coming to spring, because that's going to really help you to appease the part of your immune system that's very responsive to allergies during spring. And so quercetin and nettles, just amazing at that. So quercetin also is wonderful at bringing the inflammation down. But remember, if somebody is binging on alcohol, is eating a lot of sugar, and then you are adding quercetin as a way to lower your inflammation, that's unfair to be asking that supplement to do all the work. Okay, so I always feel like all these supplements and herbs that I'm mentioning here, they work wonderfully when combined with a really nice and clean diet and low sugar diet and no alcohol, especially during this time. CoQ10 is not something I work with on a regular basis, so it's hard for me to comment. There's one other one that you might want to consider is also in our article, resveratrol. So resveratrol is the compound that was found, in red wine. And the thing is that you need like 200 milligrams of resveratrol in order to make it clinically significant for the body. And is it between 100 to 200 milligrams? And, and wine contains something like 3 milligrams. And so unless I think it was like 6 bottles of wine would have the equivalent of the resveratrol that you might need in order to be for that to be medicinal. And by that time, you're drinking so much alcohol, this is just not worth it. Sarah is asking, let's move on to the QQ10. I think I've already answered that. Monk fruit, yes, monk fruit is fine. It's not a sugar. So monk fruit as well as stevia are in a category of not being actual sugars. So they are fine. If you like the taste, they have a quite specific taste. Is spinach one of the best green vegetables in your opinion? So I generally don't, if you have my cookbooks and you look at our recipes, I generally don't use spinach for two main reasons. Number one is because it's high in oxalates, and so people load up on oxalates a lot by eating things like spinach. And then, for example, a smoothie containing spinach and almonds, and some other nuts and seeds, and so all of that just becomes an oxalate bomb. And the second reason is that it's not a cruciferous vegetable. So here at Hormones Balance, because we are so focused on supporting our hormones, spinach doesn't really do very much for it. So I would much rather use green leafy vegetables such as arugula, or baby kale, because they support the liver in a huge way. They also contain something called DIM, dialdehydomethane, that helps with estrogen metabolism. So all around, I feel like it's a lot better. Those are much better vegetables. The last thing I will say about spinach is that a lot of people eat spinach as vegetarians because of the iron content, and there is iron called heme and non-heme a form of iron, and spinach does not have that kind of iron that is super easily absorbable by the body. The iron that is highly absorbable by the body is coming from things like livers and animal produce. And so that's part of the reason why I just don't use spinach and prefer the other ones. When is the best time to take resveratrol? It doesn't really matter whether, are you asking like whether it's morning or evening? It doesn't really matter. It could be either way. It's not a stimulating or a sedative in any form. Few of you have mentioned probiotics. Yes, I totally agree with that. Probiotics are generally quite a big conversation. And so whatever probiotic has been working for you, it's great. Continue taking that. The other thing you can also add on is bone broth. And then along bone broth is having some fermented vegetables. One of my meals, like for example, today for breakfast, I had a stir fry with rice, some vegetables, oyster mushrooms, and on the side I had some kimchi. So during this time right now where we are, I'm working on strengthening my host as much as I'm hoping you will as well, and I'm sure many of you are already doing, is to add some fermented foods, unless you're dealing with a histamine issue. So if you're dealing with histamine issues, then fermented foods are not a good idea, but most people can tolerate it, and that's amazing for your gut as well. Fermented foods are going to support your gut health, which is paramount also to a healthy immune system. Okay. Okay. Somebody's mentioning here, I don't have the name, but just to share, I have not had COVID, but my entire family has. I've been taking glutathione for about 6 to 7 months, along with other vitamins and minerals. And I think that may have kept me from getting COVID when my husband and daughter had it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. For sure. That's, what I said at the beginning is that at the end of the day, we might all have different, opinions on vaccines, on political affiliations, or whatever, all the craziness that's going on here. But I feel like the one thing that's always brings us together is being in agreement, especially when you're here, at a Hormones Balance community. I think we can all agree on one thing, and that is it only is going to help you by strengthening your host, and that is you. Okay, so let's see what other questions. I'll take 1 or 2 more questions before wrapping up. There's a question about medicinal mushrooms, so let me address that as well. Herbal mushroom tinctures. Yeah. So as you can see, Cheryl, there's a long list that I've already gone through, right? Medicinal mushrooms is not like super familiar area to me. And so that's why I'm kind of, I did not incorporate that into the protocol. However, if you feel like it's something that has helped you in the past, then definitely yes. I feel like with medicinal mushrooms, for example, reishi mushrooms is something that I've made a decoction a couple of times. Decoction means I take reishi mushroom, a dried one, and then I would slow cook it for 3 to 4 hours on a very, very low heat. And that's called a decoction. And I felt like actually it made me sick. So I feel like it's something that medicinal mushrooms, herbal medicinal mushrooms, are huge when it comes to, I think they have a lot of respect for them. It's just not my area of expertise as an herbalist. So, but if it's working for you, absolutely. Okay, well, I hope this is helpful, you guys, and it's giving me something to be prepared. A lot of our team members, have already stocked up on everything, and so they have things on hand. Many of these things that I've showed you are tinctures. They can sit in your cabinet for a very, very long time. They're not going to go bad because they're mostly alcohol infused. And I feel like shopping while you're sick is like one of the worst things that you might experience. So be ready for it. And remember, we've got the $5 off on the immune support kit with the 4 SKUs in it. So on top of that kit, we give you 15% off, and then a $5 off on top of that, and it's expiring on the 25th. So if you want to shop that, go to wellena.com, and the link is there to the immune kit. And there is a code to it called immune5 ! That's your $5 off. And it's on our newsletters today. If you receive our newsletter, it's in it there as well. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the week. And I will be seeing you sometime soon again. Bye-bye.